Okay, before we get started on the video, the following video that you're about to see is basically a re-upload of two of his videos that were never recovered to the original channel nor to the Archive channel for what I looked through on that channel. But basically, this is a re-upload that I made back in 2019. They're basically two videos in one that I made back in 2019. That is a little funny edit that I did at the time before his original channel was taken down, but now here we are, a re-upload of his original video. Well, two of his videos anyways. Now, the two differences that you are going to notice is, for one, this image that you're seeing on screen throughout the video. Well, not like it's a difference anyways, because the first video was a still image with commentary over it, but the second one did have some gameplay over it, but still it was sort of the same thing. But the point is, it's basically going to have that image throughout the whole video, so that's differences number one from the two original videos. And the second one, and this is probably going to be very noticeable, the video length that they're both videos in one, and Shadow Reader's voice being sped up by 1.25. Why is his voice sped up by 1.25? Well, it's because I was messing around at the time, back in 2019, before his original channel was taken down, and I thought, I think it'd be funny if I sped up his voice by 1.25, and so I did that at the time. And hopefully this doesn't bother you guys, but if it does, then feel free to, take this video, edit it yourself, and, do whatever with it, because I'm keeping it this way. But that's pretty much all I want to say about this re-upload. And Shadow Reader, if you are just so happening to watch this video, just to let you know, I am a fan of your content, and I do enjoy your creepypasta reading. And I hope you enjoyed this re-upload that I made, because this was a re-upload for not only for myself and your fans, but also for you. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Enjoy.
Hello. Let me tell you a story about how I found a weird but horrifying thing on a kid show. It started, let's say, 2 years ago. I was on my computer looking for full episodes of Spongebob on a website that I won't mention. Also, I really liked Spongebob, so that's why I did what I did. Then I found a quite weird one. It was called Spongebob Whirlpool. I was so curious I decided to check it out. Once I clicked, it started. I wish it never did. Anyway, it showed the intro, and already I noticed something strange instead of the normal happy music it usually played. It was just weird whistling. Then the intro kept going. The whistling then turned into a gale breezing, then into a strong breeze, and finally right when it showed SpongeBob's pants flying across the letters on the screen. The wind sounded like a hurricane, and during this my ears were almost bleeding by the loud sounds. Then the title card showed, and it was weird instead of the normal flowers or tikis in the background. It said the title, but the picture was an actual whirlpool. And then I said to myself, this episode won't be like all the others I've honestly ever seen. Certainly odd, to be completely and utterly honest here. That's a full-on fact. Now before I tell you about what I had seen, if you're afraid of tornadoes or whirlpools, then you should be careful. Now this episode. It started with SpongeBob's house. The camera zooming inside is his bottom window, and there's a SpongeBob and Patrick sitting down at the couch watching TV. Then SpongeBob said, "What a great day, Patrick. I think we should go jellyfishing on this wonderful day." Patrick then says, "Well, what are we waiting for?" But just as SpongeBob was about to turn off the TV, the news came on with the news anchor saying that there might be a whirlpool heading towards Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob jumps back as the news alert system comes on with a loud beeping noise saying that the whirlwind can wreak havoc on Bikini Bottom area, and that to stay in shelter until further notice. SpongeBob was confused, and so was Patrick. They didn't know what a whirlpool was. So they decided to go to Sandy's tree dome to figure out what a whirlpool was. SpongeBob knocks on Sandy's door. "Sandy!" As SpongeBob keeps on knocking at the door, Sandy opens the door and greets the both of them. "What's up, y'all?" Sandy said. "Nothing much," SpongeBob said. "We just wanted to know what a whirlpool was." Sandy then started explaining. "Well, a whirlpool is an underwater twister." SpongeBob then says, "A twister?" "Yeah, a twister is..." As just as she's about to say that, behind them, outside of the tree dome, there is a swirling vortex coming towards them at a fast speed. And then after a few seconds, Sandy turns around and starts screaming, louder than all the other times Sandy has screamed in the show. It legit sounded like the voice actor was actually screaming bloody murder. Then SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy started dashing towards the door. Don't worry, she had her swimsuit on. SpongeBob then said, "Oh no, we need to tell Mr. Krabs and Squidward." At this point, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It showed them leaving the tree dome, then behind them I could hear glass shattering, and I see a lot of sand swirling around. It looks scary for little children to see, especially seeing their favorite characters almost getting killed by this roaring, swirling vortex. Anyway, the scene then translate to the crusty okay, alright, I'm sorry people, I can't read the rest of this. I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. I'm gonna skim through this, and then I'm gonna give my review on this. Basically, for anybody wondering what the story is about, this story more or less is about a vortex. A twister or whirlpool or whatever the hell you want to call it going through Bikini Bottom and killing everybody. It's as simple as that. Now, there's a huge reason why I pretty much stopped it to the beginning. Now, understand me, Jaden, I'm only doing this because I want to help you get better with your writing. And it pains me to sit there and say these things, but this story was not good. In fact, this SpongeBob Creepypasta could have possibly been on one of my Creepypasta fail series. However, I'm being nice and I'm not doing that. Unfortunately, the story itself... Alright, let me explain my big issues that I have with the story. For one, this story is divided up into 2 parts. Like, no joke. 2 separate parts. Now, normally that wouldn't be much of a problem. But the first part of the matter just literally abruptly cuts. There's no, ending or anything like such to kind of more or less, like that protagonist sitting there and saying that they'll make an update to part 2. There's none of that. And then, whenever I got to part 2 of it, there was ultimately, it was a lot longer. Which completely and utterly defeats any remote purpose of making a 2-parter if you're only going to make the first part, barely even the beginning of it. Why not just sit there and write it, have it down, and then put it all together in one single story? That would not only keep me from having to sit there and have to continuously read the headache that I'm having to read, but everything else, could have probably worked out in a manner and a way. I wouldn't have to continuously click on links. Another big issue that I have with the story, and let me be honest here, the grammar is absolutely terrible. The punctuations are not in their proper thing, and I can't tell you how many times I've wound up reading parts of the story, and I have literally no idea who the heck is even talking. I mean, I think there was actually one part, where I read something in what I thought was supposed to be SpongeBob's line, but turns out it was actually Patrick's line. The grammar and the sentence structuring in this is awful. There are very few periods anywhere. And most of it's completely and utterly... There's so many run-on sentences within this creepypasta itself. More grammatical errors than I know what to even remotely say. There's no periods after the characters speak. What's up, y'all? There should be a period after that. There is none. The same thing with one that SpongeBob says. Except for, the occasional, question mark or something ending the whole story. And then, of course, yeah. It's... And there's also parts, and I'm about to rant... I've said it so many times. The I's, a few times in here, were lowercased. I expected a lot better. I truly expected a lot better. You couldn't have sat there and capitalized the I's in the story. You seriously couldn't have done that. There was more than enough times I saw a couple of lowercase I's. But to add a little bit more insult to injury, there were parts where the characters' names were not capitalized. People, if there is a noun in the thing, if it mentions a person, place, or a thing, you capitalize it. Unless it is not meant to be capitalized, especially the name of a person. In this story, there was a couple of times where a few of the names were not capitalized, and that irks me a lot. And of course, let's also get into the point in time where, besides the bad grammar, besides the lack of proper punctuation and things like that, there were parts, the main thing that made me really stop reading the story was a couple of things that just really made me oh my god, are you fucking serious right now? The one part where saying, oh, she has her swimsuit. No, it's her freaking diver suit, not her swimsuit. But I think the worst thing about this was the fact that it said that, what was it? Let's see, which one said it? Oh yeah, that apparently there was, let me get to it. Translates. Anyway, the scene then translates to the crusty... That right there was where I stopped it. I could not read any more of that after that. You seriously couldn't have put transition? You couldn't have run this through, I don't know, checked it over? And why the hell is translates capitalized? And why is the capitalized? More importantly, I'm not joking, people. There are parts in the story that were completely capitalized when they should not have ever been capitalized. More than enough times. Oh, and look, I understand, that sometimes completely putting caps lock on some things can provide something, but in this one, it just didn't whatsoever. Ugh. And of course, the grammar and everything is not good. And skimming through this again, I'm sorry to say this, but, Jaden, why did you not put the punctuation marks before the quotation marks at the end of the story? Why did you not do that? That's something that's taught in freaking 2nd or 3rd grade. It's a simple concept that is taught by everybody. Everybody, including my little sister, knows about that. Yet you couldn't have put that before that. That is a grammatical sin right there. If an English teacher was grading this, they would immediately fail you in an instant. But I think the worst thing about the story, the cliches. Oh my god, people. The cliches. The part where Sandy was screaming louder and then it got to the point where it sounded like the voice actor was actually screaming in pain. Why would you ever add that? Why would you ever remotely add that kind of story? Why would you do that? That's not realistic. That's completely and utterly a cop-out. Well, maybe a cop-out's the wrong word, but it's lazy. I mean, come on. If you're gonna have the character scream or do something, don't have it be like, it sounded like the voice actor was doing that. No. If you're gonna have them scream or cry, actually have them do that. Don't sit there and claim that the voice actor, because, the voice actor's supposed to do that kind of thing. It's very common within the story itself that, you're supposed to act out in that manner and way. And it's not likely that the voice actor is going to sit there and completely and utterly go out of character just for the very fact of the matter that they're scared or spookified or... No, that doesn't happen unless they're actually using their regular voices. I mean, some people can do that, and that's a good thing, but still, in this story, it doesn't work. And this story, I'm sorry, Jaden. I'm sorry, but this was a terrible creepypasta. Flat out terrible. And then, oh my god, I just saw another lowercase I. Oh god. Ow. I'm actually hurting right now. That hurt. That was like a punch in my gut. Yeah. But yeah, the grammar in this story is not good. The punctuation marks in the story was absolutely horrible. And the whole, I love you, Sandy. What is this, a fan fiction, people? I mean, honestly, like, I ship Sandy and Spongebob together like anybody else, but seeing that within the creepypasta, unless it was actually based on that, you can't just sit there and have something like that and expect, it to make sense. It doesn't work that way. Unless you really put time and effort to make it in that kind of manner and way, it'll work. But in this story, it just doesn't. And then the ending. Oh my god, the ending, people. Whenever you're making an ending to one of these creepypastas, whether it be Lost episode or not, you have to give a good ending to it. You have to have everything wrap up, or at the very least have it at a cliffhanger. This one just doesn't. It just simply has all the characters dying, and that's it. Nothing else more, nothing else less. It's just, the most saddest part was the 3 characters were never found again. Like, really? That's all you had to end the story with. You ended it with that. Come on, really? That's a deep shame right there. There could have been something from the protagonist. There could have been something else more. There could have been a better explanation. There could have been something else more to the story, but there's so much lacking in the story itself that it's just making me feel, I don't know. I'm not so much angry, I'm just extremely disappointed. Extremely disappointed with how the story was. Extremely disappointed with how bad the grammar was. I've said it so many times before, people. Proofread your work. Google Docs will correct most of those mistakes for you. Microsoft Word will do that. They even have a little red scribbly line that you right-click on and you better it. Hell, most Creepypasta Wikia sites have built-in editors in them to make sure of it that any mistakes that you have in there can be easily corrected. Now, I get it that not every single story out there is going to be perfect, with their grammar, unless, they're really, really crazy with it. And I hate the fact that my inner grammar Nazi's having to come out here, but you don't sit there and upload a story unless you have gotten it corrected. I keep saying this. You don't upload a story online unless you have corrected it. unless you're on Reddit. But even if you're on Reddit, you still should use common sense with sitting there and putting up at least a decently grammatical story. This story had nothing good to it. It was a cliche fest. It was absolutely not interesting whatsoever. There could have been something added to it. The horrible grammar, the cliches, and the misplacing of punctuation marks, or no punctuation marks at all. The lowercase i's, the lowercase names of the characters, and everything else within the story was terrible. I'm sorry, but it was absolutely terrible. And that's a deep, deep shame. Flat out. And I hate saying it, because I know that the author might get upset about it, but I'm saying this not to be a jerk, not to be an asshole, not to be any of those things. I will only care about you guys getting better. That's all I want. I want to see you guys succeed and become better Creepypasta writers. Or even better Creepypasta narrators. I might even start reviewing Creepypasta channels. Maybe. But that's a huge maybe. Jaden, you could have done a lot better. I'm going to be honest here. You could have done a lot better, but you didn't. And I'm disappointed on that one. But just because I'm disappointed doesn't mean I'm angry, and it doesn't mean that I don't believe you can't do better. You certainly can. You just have to follow the advice that I give, follow the advice of any other future Creepypasta narrators, or better yet, read other stories and get inspiration from that. And for the love of God, please put your stuff through Google Docs or something and correct all the errors. Now, what would I personally done to make the story better? A complete and utter rewrite. There's nothing about the story that was remotely salvageable. Wipe it all clean and rewrite the whole thing. That's what I would do. But like I always say, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regard to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of the story would be a 0 out of 10. I didn't like any of it. It was poorly made, poorly executed, poor grammar, poor pretty much everything. No effort put into the story whatsoever. I'm sorry. And even if there was supposed effort put into this, there could have been so much more put into it. I'm sorry, but that's the honest truth. Please don't hate me for that. But what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not? Also, what would you have personally done to help make the story a lot better? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode, and if you're brand new here on this channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I make brand new videos every single day. And of course, like always, roll the outro, because I'm out. Oh, hi. I didn't notice you. Well, the day was March 18th, 2018, and I was looking for Loud House episodes on the internet after school one day. Then I came across this YouTube video, which was an unofficial promo for the Loud House Season 4. In the description, I saw a download link. It was for the first episode of Season 4. I was honestly pretty excited, so I clicked it and downloaded a zip file and then opened it up. There, I saw an MP4 file, and then a README file. I scanned it for viruses and there were none, and so I checked the README file. It opened up on Notepad, and here were the only words it said. Warning. This file, TLHS4E1.mp4, contains footage not suitable for children. This episode is not to be viewed by the public. This was the original end for the Season 3 episodes. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, that warning was certainly weird. But anyway, nothing was going to stop me now. Well, that description I made that day was a very big mistake. I then opened the MP4 file, and the episode started. It was around 7 minutes and 4 seconds long. The Loud House theme song played, but the audio was muted. Since I usually kept my laptop on mute, I turned up the volume and started to hear the Loud House theme, but there was no guy singing the song, and the song sounded like it was being played on a slow piano. It sounded sad. And the main character, Lincoln, was walking down the hall. No one else was around, though, not even his sister. Lincoln's face looked as if it was very depressed, and the theme song ended, and before Lily said poo-poo, it cut to the episode. I thought to myself, well, that's over. Let's continue. I shouldn't have done that. Well, the episode title card only showed a black background with white text that said, Aggression. I was pretty confused at this point because the Loud House title cards usually had Lincoln in it, but then after 2 seconds, the entire screen went to black. It went on for about 10 seconds before the episode began. It started with Lincoln on the couch, and he was pretty ecstatic, as you could tell by the facial expressions. Lincoln then tells the viewers that he's watching one of his favorite shows. Just then, a prop spider fell on the TV. Lenny, the dumbest sister with no hesitation, took her father's sledgehammer and smashed the TV into bits. Parts of the television fly everywhere. Lincoln, obviously infuriated, then goes to Lenny to let her have it. But then Rita, the mother of the family, pulls Lincoln back. "Who did this?" Rita says. "Well," Lincoln began. "Let me guess, Lenny destroyed the TV because Luann pranked her with a spider," Rita said. "That pretty much sums it up," Lincoln said. I honestly had to think a little bit about this episode. I mean, it wasn't scary, so why did the README file say that it was unsuitable for kids? I soon found out soon enough. The screen then cut to Lori's room. Lori wasn't usually texting on her phone, instead she looked depressed, with a face of sorrow. Then a few seconds later, loud music blast, probably from Luna's room. Lori's face turned from depressed to enraged. The scene then cuts to a shot of Luna's room. The heavy metal music was unnecessarily loud. In fact, it was so loud that my roommate woke up from his afternoon nap. Ugh, man, what's going on? That's pretty much what my roommate wound up saying. I told him that it was nothing and he just went back to bed. And with that, the episode continued. Lori then burst into Luna's room and she had a pocket knife. "Shut the fuck up!" Lori screamed. "Wanna rock out with me?" Luna said. "I'm grieving right now. I have no time for your crap," Lori said. I was completely shocked. Why in the world was there swearing for a show made for kids? Also, why put morbid subjects in the show? Anyway, I kept on watching against my better judgment. Lori, in a blind rage, stabs Luna in her thigh. Blood splatters everywhere. Lori then runs out of the house and Lincoln follows her. It then cuts to the outside of the house. Lincoln chases Lori into some railroad tracks nearby. Then an oncoming train crushes both Lincoln and Lori, killing Lincoln instantly and severely injuring Lori. She then looks in horror at the dead body of Lincoln. "What have I done?" Lori says, sadly. Then a title card pops up saying, 2 months later. The scene then cuts to a funeral. All the sisters were there. Each and every one of them were sad, and they were crying hysterically. Sad piano music began to play. It was heartbreaking. After that, the screen faded to black, and then it showed the house that the Loud family lived in, burning. And the episode faded to black, and the credits started to roll. I didn't recognize anybody. It just dragged on for about 50 seconds or so. It was in white text scrolling on a black background, with sad music playing. Then the video closed out of the player, and I checked for the promo. It had been taken down due to a copyright claim by Viacom. I emailed Viacom about the episode, but they didn't know what I was talking about. After that, I just stared lifelessly at the monitor for hours on end. And that, my little shadows, was the Loud House Aggression, a Loud House Lost Episode Creepypasta. My final thoughts? This story was downright awful in every sense of the word. Where do I even begin with this story? Now, normally I would talk about the negatives and positives of each story, but this story really had nothing positive going for it at all. To start this all off, the grammar. I always need to mention the fucking grammar with these stories. It wasn't as bad as the last fail story I did yesterday, but at the same time, it was nothing else more but sloppy and downright lazy, to say the least. And that's being nice, too. There were parts of the story that honestly had me skip over some words that were in there because the story was in the layout that the story was. If you don't believe me, I have a screenshot right here. I will show it to you all right now. Do you all see that? Do you all see that? That right there is proof that the story itself was so horribly and sloppily written and... oh, God, it was so awful. But yeah, it was that bad. I seriously couldn't even see some of the letters, and I wound up skipping over a few of them. Thankfully, though, I managed to not skip a whole lot, but yeah. Now, that isn't the worst part of the story. What I hated most about the story, if you want to call it that, is the fact that the story was about as overly cliche as a Lost Episode Creepypasta can be. I mean, there was everything in there. Blood, swearing, gore, suicide, black screens, warnings not to watch said video, downloaded from YouTube, viruses, other links. I mean, do I even need to continue on from here? The storytelling of this creepypasta was about as laughable could be. I mean, really, starting a story with a, "Oh, hi, I didn't see you there," kind of line at the very beginning of your story? Are you serious right now? That kind of line right then and there is only used in kid shows for toddlers, not for creepypastas that are meant to scare people. However, I mean, I know I said that that's one of the worst parts, but no. No. That isn't even the tip of the iceberg here. Oh my God, it isn't. The worst thing about the story was the fact that the author didn't capitalize a single fucking I in this entire goddamn story. You all know how I feel when it comes to lazy writing. I go fucking ballistic like Gordon Ramsay at a goddamn McDonald's convention. There is no excuse, and I mean no fucking excuse, for not capitalizing the I's in your story. Not only that, but there were way too many run-on sentences in this story too, which makes my blood boil. And had I not read this story beforehand, I would have lost my breath just trying to read at least three freaking sentences of the story. The way the characters react in this story is also very ridiculous and over the top. For one, why in the ever-living hell would Lori stab Luna like that over the fact that she was grieving? I mean, who the hell does that? I know that this is a cartoon and all, and that cartoon characters tend not to act very realistic for the sake of comedy and all that jazz, But for the love of God, you could have done something else to have Luna get stabbed by her older sister. Or better yet, you could have done something else more, like, I don't know, not having her stab her at all? Or if you are going to have that, make it scary. But there was nothing scary about the story in any manner or in any way. Oh, and the fact that you had to add Lincoln getting hit by a train is like adding salt to this wound here. I mean, the story in and of its own self rips my skin open in ways that I wouldn't even know, and you're just pretty much shoving salt in. And oh my god, that didn't make any sense, but seriously, this story is bad. Now, you all might be asking why this didn't make, into one of my failed creepypasta videos. And I have this one thing that I will admit. It's not really a positive, but it is something that the story did actually have going for it, but completely and utterly ruined. That is, the story itself had an interesting concept. That's it. An interesting concept, but was ultimately ruined for the sake of using cheap thrills, cliches, and other things to try and get a good quote-unquote scare out of people. To the author who wrote the story, I know I'm sounding like a big giant dick right now, but please try and take this criticism of your story to heart and work harder to really better your stories. Because if anything, if you don't get this kind of criticism, you're not going to better yourself. And this goes to all the other stories out there, even on my failed story. I know I tend to get really angry, but I'm angry for a reason here. I do these reviews so that you guys can help improve your own writing and do a billion times better and be amazing writers. That's why I'm so harsh with you all. That's why I'm harsh with a lot of stories that I tend to do. With a few exceptions, but even then though, I still always make sure to try and make sure that the stories are good. Now, my final rating of the story is a low 1 out of 10 in the creepypasta scale. Bad story, bad everything. It had an interesting concept, but it just wasn't good. Thanks again, everyone, for watching this episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm the Shadow Reader, and like I always say, roll the outro.